Hello and welcome to Levels Plus Whenever, episode 168. And my video schedule has been mixed up a little bit. This was originally going to be a Fire Emblem Path of Radiance update to characters and doing a ranked list of Fire Emblem. That's now the next episode. The state of play has redefined what I'm doing, and we're going to talk about Castlevania a little bit since it's back with a new game. And we're going to talk about Marvel Tokon roster speculation now that we've actually had some updates on that front, which is very exciting. I just got back from a gaming convention here in town, and I bought some artwork from some artists that are California based. So want to share. So I've got two Studio Ghibli watercolor prints by Levi Craig, aka Watercolor Chaos. Let me flip over. Here is his Instagram page, just so you can kind of check him out. Was super friendly, super nice, super passionate. The splatters that you saw is blown by hand. All of this is done by hand. I love the fact that we had no AI artists happening at this event, so I was really pleased about that. And then I've got this piece that was done by Skyhurst Studios, specifically Gary Leib, who signed this one for me. He was super nice. They specifically said no AI, all human at their booth, which I loved. And I'll flip over to their website because I'm getting a canvas piece of their Super Metroid painting, which is super sick. I don't have anything for Super Metroid quite like that beyond a Nintendo Power poster. So I would much rather have a piece of original artwork. Had a lovely conversation with Gary as well. So I will put links in the description to both of their pages so you can check them out on your own time. But had a wonderful conversation with both of those artists and super stoked to get the canvas print eventually, which I will show off in a future pickups video. So, Castlevania Belmont's Curse is a new game in the Castlevania series. I can't believe I'm saying that. It's been so long. The last mainline Castlevania game was Harmony of Despair on PS3 and Xbox 360 and PC, I think. Lords of Shadow did come after that, but that's a spin-off. Grimoire of Souls did come out on mobile, but I don't really count that as mainline. So yeah, it's been a little while. It's been quite a while. Konami's been doing a pretty good job on keeping the series somewhat relevant with M2 compilations, which have all been excellent. But a new game is fantastic. I would be remiss if I didn't point out that Castlevania has crossed over with a bunch of different other games like Dead Cells, Vampire Survivors, Dead by Daylight, I think. I've lost track. I've lost track of who's in Dead by Daylight. Just about everyone is. There's a couple others that I don't immediately have leaping to mind. But the first one is the important one, Dead Cells, for this discussion, because the developers of that game, which is Motion Twin and Evil Empire, are the ones working on Castlevania Belmont's Curse. And from all we can see in the trailer, what I've looked at on the website and the PlayStation blog, this does appear to be a more or less more traditional Metroidvania style Castlevania game than a roguelite or a roguelike, which is what Dead Cells is. Will that be the case? It's not really clear. I haven't really seen anything saying that you're going to have those types of elements in the game anywhere. It wasn't really showcased in the trailer. It seems like it's fairly traditional. However, the visual look is very Netflix anime inspired, which I think is a great look. It looks really nice. We have a woman protagonist, the first woman Belmont since Sonia Belmont, who has had such a troubled history in the franchise, appearing in a non-canon, I guess that's what you would say, non-canon Castlevania with Legends on the Game Boy. Was in the aborted Castlevania Resurrection for the Dreamcast, and has not been seen much since. I wonder if Evil Empire Motion Twin are using Sonya as their protagonist, because Konami's being incredibly coy about who the name of this character is. We know Trevor's involved plot-wise, and we know that it takes place after Dracula's curse. But we do not know our heroine's name yet. She does seem to have magical capabilities on top of mastery of the vampire killer. So it would be likely that they are canonizing the relationship between Trevor and Sypha that Dracula's Curse hinted at in the Netflix show, I think pushed forward. That the power of the Belmonts and the Belnondes together will be what we're working with as a toolkit, so to speak, for our protagonist. She's got the ability to whip and grapple onto things, which I think is a really nice throwback to Super Castlevania 4 and Bloodlines, but this is certainly taken up to the next level. It seems like it's going to be a major part of movement tech in this game. It looks fun. Wall jumping is also going to be a major part, which I think is also a great idea. I think that redefining a bit of the Castlevania moveset in a Metroidvania is a good thing, because we've only had one Belmont in the entire run of Metroidvanias be in a proper Metroidvania, which is Juiced. And Juice moveset wasn't that far removed from Alucard's beyond using the traditional vampire killer and building off of Circle of the Moon's card system for the sub-weapons and stuff. So I think that we're seeing a really interesting progression of ideas. We're also seeing the sub-weapons being potentially used as mechanical Metroid-style pickups. There's a werewolf boss that's using the cross, and we do see our protagonist using the cross later. So I'm going to make assumptions that you're going to be fighting bosses to gain access to those sub-weapons down the road that you'll be able to use for specific progression, as well as expanding your arsenal to be able to fight off the demons invading France. I think that this game is looking fantastic. I do like this visual style. Would I prefer it if it was pixelated? Probably. But I also have to be conscious of the fact that that's a rarity anymore. I mean, Bloodstained is going even harder into the 2.5D with its sequel. But I have to say, based on just a quick examination of those two trailers side by side, I'm kind of liking the direction that Castlevania Belmont's Curse is going more than Bloodstained 2 is. We'll see. It'll be nice to see more on Bloodstained 2 and see what Igarashi's up to on that game. But I'm pretty pumped. I love Castlevania. It is tied with Metroid as my favorite franchise of all time in video games. I am just over the moon that we are getting more games that are official and canon and look to be being made by passionate teams that care. it's wonderful having Konami be back at this level once again. They surprised me twice with Silent Hill. Generally speaking, a lot of their retro efforts have been very good outside of things they've contracted to limited run games and their shitty Carbon engine. I had to throw them under the bus at some point for that horrid Rocket Knight Adventures. Enough harping on Carbon engine for this episode. I'm really excited. I want to learn so much more about this game, and it's already got pre-orders open, which is just like, woo! It's not like a $70 game, which is also fantastic. So I will be pre-ordering that very soon. And I will definitely be keeping you posted on impressions and additional thoughts as we get more information. There's only so much I could talk about with the current knowledge we have, which is very little. But I am super pumped. I am so excited that my favorite Konami series is bringing new things to the table. And this is only the beginning. There's more planned. We don't know what that looks like, if it's more new games or more compilations. But either way, Castlevania's 40th anniversary is looking really good right now. And that just makes me really, really excited, because I have a feeling the other franchise that I love will not be getting that level of attention. Nintendo? Can we have a Metroid 40th, please? I guess we could argue that Prime 4 Beyond was the 40th anniversary game, despite coming out a month early, but I think that there should be something else. At least some sort of public acknowledgement about the anniversary, but Nintendo doesn't do that the same way as a lot of other companies do. If it's not Mario and questionably Zelda, they don't really make a big deal out of their anniversaries. And I think that's kind of sad, because that's a lot of their development legacy. And Metroid, while not as big in Japan, is certainly big elsewhere, and I would love to see it get the same degree of love expressed by the company the way that Konami seems to be handling Castlevania right now. Anyway, that's all I got for Castlevania, so let's switch over to Marvel Tokon. I predicted this more or less. Wolverine and Magic were in the actual roster predictions. I bumped them up. Danger is a character I had never heard of before yesterday, so I bumped her up. And somehow, some way, I didn't have Doctor Doom in the known fighters category. No idea how that happened. However, we now have gained knowledge on how Arc System Works, Sony, and Marvel are building out the roster for this game. So I need to actually reset this whole thing and recreate a new format so we can do this with these new revelations. So, one moment. Okay, so the big thing about the state of play yesterday, beyond learning 3 new characters, was how this game is structuring itself. There will be teams of 4. There's 20 characters at launch. That translates to 5 teams. There's 3 characters that have not been given team captain status, and they are at the bottom. There's also a Season 1 DLC team that we will discuss after we sort out everything else. So, all we know is that one of the team is X-Men, and we can see from the roster choices that were made that they are not afraid of going wacky. Magic, I think, has been on a bit of a resurgence in terms of popularity. She was in Midnight Suns, she was in Marvel Rivals, now she's in Tokon. She seems to be having a bit of a renaissance right now. Danger is such a deep pick. She appeared in 2005, I want to say, as a living embodiment of the artificial intelligence powering the Danger Room in the Xavier Mansion. the She-Ra seem to be an important part of Tokon's story, so it makes sense for them to pick a character that is essentially She-Ra tech. So I think that their X-Men choices are daring and inspired. We have Storm and Wolverine as the pillars, and then we have Magic as the up-and-comer, and Danger as the wild card. And my thought is that we're going to have some sort of similar structure across the board for the other 5 or other 4 teams. So I'm making some speculation here, and you're going to have to deal with me typing ever so briefly. I think that Robbie Reyes' team is going to be a team that is out for vengeance for some reason. That's just kind of Ghost Rider's whole thing anyway. But I also think that the person that I'm going to assign to that team is also going to be kind of in that boat. If I could spell vengeance correctly. There we go. I think Doom is leading a villains team. Or possibly a magic team, but I want to go with the villains angle because otherwise we won't really have any. Cap is, of course, leading the Avengers, and I think that Spidey is leading a Defenders team, more or less. A street-based, local hero type of thing. So with that in mind, Iron Man goes in the Avengers, and I'm going to put Ms. Marvel in the Defenders because even though I don't know how often these two have interacted, they're both really about protecting their city. So I think that they would work well together. Star-Lord is the one that I don't really know where to put anywhere. And I think he's the one that's proving difficult. As the leader of the Guardians of the Galaxy, more or less, the unofficial leader. In the MCU, he went through loss. I wonder what Tokon's going to do with him. I'm leaning towards this vengeance column and that he has some sort of personal grudge against another part of this cast that he needs to be acting on. That something happened to a member on his team or something. We don't know. Okay, I think I have found all the characters that I need. So, I'm trying to have some semblance of gender parity on this roster. Some semblance of it. So I have picked more women than I probably normally would, but I'm feeling with the X-Men team having 3 women on it out of all of the options they could have picked, I feel like Arc System Works might be aiming for that a little bit. So, hey, this is my predictions. So let's start with the villains, since the villain team is currently empty. I think that Magneto is going to represent the X-Men villainy and is that other pillar I was referring to. That, there's a lot of history with fighting games in Magneto. I feel like it's not going to hurt to have a character like Magneto in a game like this. I think his power set just really works well. However, I'm going to throw you off a slight bit. And I've got 2 characters that don't necessarily scream villain at this particular point in history, but both have had stretches of villainy in their careers. And Nebula, I think, will be the reason why Star-Lord is in the vengeance pile. I don't fully know the backstory, but I do know that her and Gamora have beef. And she has worked for Thanos, at least in the movies. So I think that she could be an interesting character to include, especially since she could potentially regenerate her parts and all that. And then, of course, I got to put Scarlet Witch somewhere. She could be an Avenger, but I think that in the Avenger side of things, she's too well known. So I feel like putting her in a villain category and having her losing faith in humanity, perhaps, which is something she has done, has made her join up with Doom instead of being on the side of good. For our Defenders team, I've got pretty much the lead of that group, Daredevil. Now, before you start arguing and saying, wait, Matt Murdock is in the background of the city stage, Storm is in the background of the X Mansion as well if she is not chosen as one of the main characters. So I think that Arc System Works is going to be doing that a bit with some of their background characters. That they can be a playable character even if they're in the background. My other choice, though, might be a little bit of a surprise. I'm not picking Venom, who I think a lot of people might expect with Spidey on their roster, but I'm picking Gwenom, which is Spider-Gwen with a symbiote. So that kind of matches the original intent I had of having Spider-Gwen be a part of this roster as kind of the Deadpool replacement. But now she's also got symbiote powers, which would kind of give her a bit more of an edge. In terms of being distinct from Spider-Man. For the Avengers, I went with Captain Marvel. I think that she is... We already have our two pillars. We have Captain America and we have Iron Man. I think that with Captain Marvel, she's definitely seen an uptick in popularity. She's been in 2 movies. Has got more stuff planned for her in the MCU and plenty of comics. America Chavez, however, is my wild card as one of the young Avengers, which Ms. Marvel is too. Let's not pretend that she's not. But I think that Ms. Marvel fits better with this homegrown heroine sort of vibe with the Defenders. And I think America Chavez fits in well as a young Avenger and is an up-and-comer in the same way that... Well, I would even say she's more of a wild card than anyone else on the Avengers side. So like Gwenom's my wild card for the Defenders, and in some ways Scarlet Witch is my wild card for the villains because she's not usually considered one. America is my choice for the wild card for the Avengers. And then last but not least for the Vengeance team. Again, Star-Lord's throwing this off, but I think that we could have Elsa Bloodstone and Sylvie be here. They both have their reasons to be upset at the world. Elsa has superhuman strength, speed, durability, endurance, regenerative healing factor, immunity to vampire bites. Her blood will kill a vampire if consumed. And she possesses all of the abilities her father once had, which I don't even know what that means. She can fire energy blasts from her right hand. Just randomly. She's also really skilled with guns. And that would be more conventional guns than space lasers, which is what Star-Lord is currently using, or mecha lasers like Iron Man. I just think she's got kind of a cool vibe about her, so I would really think she would be fun. Sylvie, I think, is great in Loki, and she is a Loki, so that gives me my Loki rep that I really want. And she's just angry at so many things. She just wants to have a normal life. And I think that joining this team could kind of help her feel like she's achieving that goal by knocking out so many of the factors that are piled against her. She could be in the villain pile. I feel like that is an interesting roster to me that kind of captures what they did with the X-Men. Will they do any of these characters? I have no idea. If they don't pick any of them, that's totally fine. I'm already excited by Arc System Works, Sony, and Marvel's choices with X-Men. That whatever they do, I think would be neat. However, we got a DLC team to consider. What could be a new team if we're following a team-based structure? What could be a new team to stand alongside these characters in terms of Marvel? The first thought is Fantastic Four, but I feel like that's kind of boring because we already have Ms. Marvel there who's got stretchy limbs, so that kind of makes Reed redundant. The other three are a little bit more justifiable, but we don't fully know what the plot line of Tokon is. We also don't know if the DLC is going to be continuing that structure that they started with their story mode, or if they're going to basically be just a random grab bag of cool characters. We don't know. But I do think I want to name a team that will fall into here, and I'm going to lean with the Thunderbolts as the first DLC team. And let me grab some characters to throw in there. And this is the team that I think could be the first DLC team. And it's a bit of a wild one. But, you know, it's 4 characters that have never been in a fighting game. White Widow's sister has. But I think that there's always been a call for Green Goblin to be called up into a roster. He was the leader of one of the Thunderbolts iterations over the years. Shang-Chi has been on the roster. Songbird's been in most of them, so I feel like she would be essential. And White Widow would be my choice over Black Widow because I'm being contrarian. And I prefer Yelena anyway. Will they pick the Thunderbolts? Probably not. But that's my guess. I feel like they would be an interesting rival to the Avengers and would be able to kind of capture some of these characters that wouldn't be able to fit in with other groups. We shall see. I mean, Green Goblin could end up with Doom for all I know, and I would still be happy about it. All right, friends, I appreciate you tuning in, and I'll see you next time. Take care.